Hi, it's good to be able to talk to you about the Long Island Sound report card that we've been working on for the past year. Give you an update. Remember from last time we talked, we go through this 5-step process of creating a conceptual framework, choosing indicators, defining thresholds, calculating scores, and then communicating results. We're now at the step 4, getting prepared for step 5. So here are the goals for our project: provide an overall ecosystem health report for Long Island Sound, conduct 2 embayment report cards, one Connecticut and one Long Island, communicate the results through annual or biannual report cards, engage communities to increase awareness of environmental issues through these report cards, and then provide recommendations to improve estuarine ecological health. And we're also interested in providing a pathway for sustainable production of report cards that doesn't involve people from Maryland, for example. So let me just give you the results. I'm going to go through each of these water quality indicators. There are 5. First of all is dissolved oxygen. You can see that the gradient here is generally west to east, although the western narrows is slightly better than most of the other areas due to good flushing. Eastern narrows is the most degraded. This map is the style we'll show for the rest of these. You can see the data points for the actual sampling stations, and you can also see the boundaries of the 5 reporting regions, something that we decided on at the last STAC meeting. Here's chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, similar kind of gradient where eastern narrows is the most degraded and eastern and western narrows the best. Nitrate, nitrite, we've got significant degradation in the western narrows, but actually pretty good shape otherwise. Orthophosphate, we don't have data for the western narrows, but we tend to be failing everywhere throughout the sound. So that's clearly a problem. Secchi, also turbidity is relatively high throughout, with the exception of the western narrows. So when you combine these 5 water quality indices together into a water quality index, you ended up with this pattern with improvements at both ends of the sound, eastern and western narrows and eastern Long Island Sound, and then degraded D in the grading scheme that we're using here in the eastern narrows, western and central Long Island Sound. Now, grading schemes. There are 2 options on the grading schemes that we've come up with. One is a 10-point grading scale, so 60 and below is failing. So 90 to 100 is A, 80 to 90 is B. Or a 20-point scale where we just evenly divide up the 0 to 100 into 20% increments. And so the data I've just shown you is using the 10-point grading scale, the one on the top. You can see how the grades, the range of grades come about, and then the 20-point grading scale at the bottom. And we've used both scales in different in various different report cards that we've done. So there's not a right or wrong. They're just 2 different kinds of grades that can be generated. We also, in addition to the water quality, came up with a series of biotic indicators. This is the one that, talking with the fisheries people, we came up with for fisheries. And this is the biomass area day depletion, or BAD index. And that's measuring the impact of low dissolved oxygen on the bottom dwelling finfish. And you can see even though the average bottom water temperature is rising, climate change, the blue line, the BAD index isn't following that trend. So that's I guess good news in the sense that they're not impacting the finfish. There is other data that's been demonstrated that the species composition is changing, more warm water species replacing the cooler water species. We also were able to obtain some piping plover nesting site data, and here is the map that we have. These shore birds that are on these sandbars are found throughout the Long Island side of the sound and scattered, particularly in eastern Connecticut side of the sound. No overall patterns. I don't I don't suppose, but data that's relevant to a lot of people. And then the importance of swimmable and fishable. So this is the swimmable index, the bacteria at the beaches, and we used a fire danger type of depiction here. It's because it's a risk assessment. It's not that you're definitely going to get sick, but there's a higher risk of becoming sick from swimming where the water quality is degraded. And you can see here that the Western Narrows is the most the most problem associated with bacteria, and Central actually is higher than either the Western or Eastern Long Island Sound. The fishable, the shell, we focused on the shellfish beds, and what we've used is two different schemes because New York State and Connecticut have two different ways of classifying shellfish areas, whether they're restricted or certified, and so we kind of we put them together with two different color schemes, and you can see that, of course, the Western Sound, the Western Narrows and the Eastern Narrows are fairly unfishable for shellfish for most of the time. You can see that in the Connecticut coast they become potentially usable. And then we've got a draft of the total report card. This is using the data that you've just seen. I'll just flick through this as just an example of what it would look like. It's a gatefold. There are 8 pages total. So if you open it up, you see a cross-section conceptual diagram of the sound, a little intro, map of the watershed, and discussion of the threats with appropriate photography. We have the biotic indicators on one of the flaps, the finfish that you saw, the bad index, the piping plover, the map that hasn't been inserted there, and we put eelgrass, even though it's restricted to the Eastern Long Island Sound reported region only, but it's something highly relevant for historically, of course, in the Sound. And then the center spread is the map of the reporting regions that you've seen, but in addition, we have these little pie charts which have each of the individual water quality parameters listed on here with the color coding, so that you can see why the Western Narrows achieved the grade it did, or the Eastern Narrows, for example. So so you can go through and delve into that, and then appropriate explanatory text associated with it, which has not been written yet. That's Latin there, just for reference. And then we have the human health, the shellfish, and then we put an additional climate change indicator here. I mentioned when we were talking about the bad index about the warm water, cold water species. And then the back cover being the connection to the embayment report cards, a little about the methodology, and then the logos. And then just quickly, just to refresh on the embayment report cards, we have the two, Connecticut, we have the Norwalk River and Harbor report cards, and the Hempstead Harbor report card in Long Island. And just using the same color scheme and mapping different indicators, however, we've got these data available. And then discussion about the threats and shellfish closures as well, and then connecting it to the broader Long Island Sound, and then methodology and what you can do to help. And these are the two left on this page is Norwalk Harbor, and the right page is the Hempstead Harbor. So we've got a dissemination plan that we're developing. We haven't finalized the date, but it's going to be probably the third week of April, where we'll do the release of both Norwalk and Hempstead Harbors, and as well as the Long Island Sound report card.